Hello and welcome back for another Power Hour gardening challenge. So today we are going to be outside of the hothouse. I'm filming the intro in here because we've got wind and a bit of rain, so I'm going to be filming in between, doing the best I can. That is the joys of YouTube channels that involved outdoor work. But we're going to be planting out several different things today, and a couple of things that I've experimented with, and I've just had some barrel pots donated to me. I was lucky to stumble upon them, and I'm layering them up to grow veggies in and strategically placing them where my irrigation can be utilized for them, so I don't have to be watering them as much or if any. So hopefully I'll be able to set that up so they are easy to take care of pots, because as we know, or you may not know, that looking after pots can be hard work and a lot of work, keeping the water up to them, specifically in the summertime. So I do find it difficult to keep up with pots in the summertime. So I try and get as much as I can into the ground or into large areas where the soil kind of holds the moisture longer and the water is not so difficult to maintain. So that's what we're doing for our Power Hour, and a couple of little random things, and we will get some more work done. I'm getting so much done because of this challenge. I hope you've enjoyed the challenge. If you've been following along, and if you're not, feel free to join us and getting more done out in your garden for setting the clock and going for an hour. See you over at the pots. So the first thing I need to do is get a barrel load of soil. So I've got some garden mix that has been sitting on my driveway for weeks now, and I've been trying to use it up. And so I'll be using that in these pots, but not just that. I am utilising other resources that I got for free and that will feed the pots eventually and the plants eventually, and some cheaper resources, fairly local, that I got, or actually we can call it local because they weren't too far away, and I picked them up while I was picking something else up. So I got some cow manure from a farmer, which is great manure for boosting your plants, and it's the first time I've actually used real cow manure. When I say real, not in those bags full of sawdust. So I'm going to utilise that as well, but let me show you what else is in these pots. Oh, can I say that moving barrows of damp soil at my age is no easy thing anymore. However, I've managed to get this down the stairs, another one, and I'll be glad when that pile's gone. So we're going to put them into these tubs, which I've already pre-prepared. So I'll show you now what that is, and but they need another watering. I've noticed that they're not quite wet thoroughly down to the bottom, so I need to water them in again before I start layering up the soil. And I'm going to layer this soil, which is a garden mix that, look, I treat all garden mixes from the suppliers now with a grain of salt. I'm not sure how good they are, so I add manure and rock minerals to it usually, because yeah, I have my doubts after something that happened earlier on. So I'm going to put this in though. It's still good enough to use, but I'm going to add to it. I have already added a large bag each of closed loop compost, and what that is a compost I managed to pick up for free. That is, you could actually call it a pre-compost, because it is not completely broken down. It's vegetable scraps or kitchen scraps from a restaurant situation that has been put through one of those very expensive electric compost machines. So very good to add to your compost bins, to your worm bins and to your garden carefully, but too strong to put right beside seedlings or seeds and that. So I've put this further down in the bin where it's not going to touch or go near any plants for a while, and gives the a chance for worms to get in there. And I've actually found some worms in that soil. There's actually some worms that have come up from my garden where it was sitting on my garden, and they've migrated into the soil a bit. So there's a few in there. As I'm gardening, probably throw some worms in as I find them and let the worms work that. That will work on the bottom layer, and I've got to make sure that that's moist though for that to be effective. And then the worms and the microbes will work up and down the pot. So getting enough water in there before I add the soil. And with each layer, when I build a bed, especially a large area, and even with pots, when I layer up pots, small pots even, I make sure it's thoroughly watered. I'm going to make sure that everything's moist, there's no dry components, particularly using mulch in the bottom that will try and take up like a sponge the water. You've got to give it plenty. So I'm hoping that's the case. Now ideally the water is better to be tank water or rainwater, but if you haven't got enough, like I'm doing now, you just use the tap. All right, let's turn that off. I don't know if I can turn this tap off. I've got it. It's not completely off, but it's slowed down. All right. So then I will add a layer of this. I'm not sure how far this barrow will go. Probably need more than one. They're quite large pots. So these are food grade containers. I think they may have originally had maybe olives in them, not sure, but they've been used for a garden previously. So I managed to get them already with holes in part one. I've got to add holes to that one, I realised after I started filling it. So we'll drill some holes in that. I will monitor to see if they are draining well enough and if it needs to have more holes drilled. But adding the holes, I prefer to have holes just about maybe on something like this, about 2 inches above the ground rather than on the bottom, so that it retains the moisture in the bottom as a bit of reservoir, much like a wicking bed, and the pots don't dry out as quickly. So to drill, if you're making pots, even little pots from scratch, if you drill the holes just a little way up on the bottom, rather than from the bottom on the sides, rather than on the bottom, you are going to have pots that are going to be less likely to dry out and much easier to look after. Now, was that a grub in there? Let me see. I did find a grub while I was shoveling in, which I don't want in the pots because they will definitely eat the sweet potatoes that's going in one of these, and we don't want that. All right, I'll get the first layer of soil by the looks in these three, and I'll probably need another barrow to just any weeds or potential weed roots. It's not supposed to have any in, but it does. I'm removing as well as we go. Okay. Now this pot here on the end, this one here, has 2 pots in it. This one didn't have a base in it, so I think it's the top that's been placed inside the bottom of the barrel. So it does have drainage holes on the very bottom of this, on the side, so right down almost at ground level. And this can drain straight through because it's got an open end on it. But I couldn't get this out. It would have been handy to actually have 2 and use one even as a one that's directly in the ground. Could have grown a tree in that and had it grow through into the ground and still protected it from the brush cutter and things like that. But I couldn't get it out, so it stays. All right, let's finish this off. Oh, see, there's a worm. Let me get my gloves. There's a few worms in here. I can see even as I've dug it up, they have, make sure there's one in there. You can see, I don't know if you can see, if I put it right near the face, it's focused on. Little worm, little worm. Welcome to your new home. In you go. They will absolutely love that closed loop compost because it's all food. A bit of tile that shouldn't be in garden mix. I'm always on the lookout as I'm using this garden mix, so I keep a lookout because there's been bits of construction in it, plastic, wiring, tiling, you name it. All the things that aren't meant to be in our very expensive soil mixes that we buy in. But they, in my case, they were. So now I'm picking them out bit by bit to try and keep my soil nice and free from as many contaminants as I can. We don't have total control, but I'm going to have to do this with my hands, I think, the rest. Pretty good. I'm glad that's high enough for the next stage. I was hoping I'd get enough for the 3 for the next stage. The closed loop compost that I put on will ensure the bottom third of those barrels turn into a nice compost. And up the top, I want to enrich this part with aged manure for the plants that are going in soon, and well, actually some are going in today. So which one am I doing? I'm going to pick that one for the end one, the sweet potato, in case it just goes nuts and needs room to sprawl. So over here I have the cow manure that I picked up from a farmer. And the bags cost me $5 each, or if you bought 3 you got an extra one. So basically I got 4 bags for $15, and it's definitely cow manure. It is damp. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's the real McCoy. Whew. I'll rinse that out and pour that into my compost. Whew. Oh. Whew. That stinks. See how we go. I'm going to, rather than put a bag in each, oh, the joys of gardening, guys. I'm putting a bit in each. Ooh, yucky. Things you do for vegetables. All right. somebody in the comments is going to say, that's why we buy the aged one with sawdust. Phew. I'm mixing it into the soil, and hopefully I don't cut up a worm while I'm doing it. Oh, yuck. Oh, so I have the nose that always knows. So the nose that always knows when there's a smell around, and it's intense for me, and this is intense. Glass, plastic. Okay, so here you go, worms. You'll love that. Okay, so that's the lower layer. So I'm still going to fill this right up, because the camphor laurel, actually, they will rot down and this will shrink. So I'm going to fill this right to the brim with soil. So this manure is there and the soil's there. So hopefully by the time the plants work their way down, that manure will be not too fresh for them. The results will tell us, won't they? I'll turn this one in a bit more first before chopping it up. And then as I water this in, it'll break it down a bit more, no doubt. That one bag went a long way. Okay, water. Whew. The wind's picking up. Smells better when the wind's picking up though. It's carrying it away. Okay, so that wind is, I'm getting big gusts, and so it's very tricky to film safely for my camera. But what I've decided, because that manure was not as aged as I thought it was, that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit the sweet potatoes on top of the tub that they'll be planted into, or some of them will be planted into, and I will let them climatise in that area for a period of time, and I won't plant them yet, and I'll keep an eye on them and plant them kind of at the last minute, give them a bit of get that tub a bit of time to mature a bit. And some of the other tubs will be fine to plant into because they're shallow rooted fruit. I'm putting in some thornless raspberries that could go in later too, because they have just been recently potted up, so they're quite happy in the pots. And again, I might even just put the pots there or sink them into the soil there, and that will and I'll just keep an eye on them there, and then plant them a bit later. Yeah, and the seeds can go in on top. I'm going to put some Cape gooseberry seeds in, and they can be sprinkled on top. I think I will wait till the wind dies down. They're the finest seeds ever, and if I sprinkle them on top, they'll just blow away on me. so they can go on when the wind dies down. If I get a chance to do that today, I'll split my hour up. But the main job is done. Getting those pots filled and ready for planting is another, pretty much a whole garden bed done. Those pots are that big that it'd be equivalent to a nice garden bed full of potential eating material. Okay, well, thanks for joining me in this next power hour, or this power hour. Hope to see you in the next time. Bye for now.